Thank you. And I'm from South Louisiana. So many of you guessed. You couldn't guess from my name, right? We say Champagne here, but where I grew up, it's Champagne. So I grew up in St. Martin Parish. So I'm going there after this talk. So this is the first time I've spoken at the Men's Health Day, and actually I was honored to be asked to speak, and I was told that these guys need to find out what to eat when they go out, because men tend to go out to eat quite a bit. I think just a few statistics as we begin. How many of you heard Tony Clayton's talk? I thought that was very inspiring, and you know, it's sort of we tend to look at people and think that they don't have health problems because they're, you know, important people in the community, but they're just like us. We are all human, and we are all predisposed to certain, unfortunately, certain conditions that we've inherited from our parents. But eating out is an environmental thing. And so when we look at what Americans are eating out there, obviously they're eating out more today than they did basically in the 1950s, about 20% more. But they spent about an estimated 44% of their food dollar on purchased foods at restaurants. And the average American eats out about 4 times a week. And I think I know people who eat out every day. So, you know, nutrition is important. This guy here is talking to his doctor, and for those of you who can't see in the back, he says, I try to eat healthy. I never sprinkle salt on my ice cream. I only eat decaffeinated pizza, and my beer is 100% fat-free. So, you know, when I look at what people think about, you know, how they're trying to make dietary changes, they actually are not thinking straight, because, you know, who would sprinkle salt on their ice cream? I used to sprinkle salt on my watermelon, but not on my ice cream. But excess body fat is really linked to a number of health conditions, particularly heart disease and diabetes, and we really worry about the main factors that are affecting weight are metabolism, but how many times have I heard people tell me it's my metabolism? But you know, it's not always their metabolism. It is oftentimes their food intake and their activity level. So if you take in too much food and you're sitting in front of the TV, you're not getting a lot of activity. So those are important things. And you know, diabetes is important as well. Diabetes is linked to being overweight. Type 2 diabetes is linked to being overweight. And sometimes a family history of that factors in. However, a lot of people think that they get diabetes because they eat too much sugar. And it's really not it's not sugar. It's whatever causes you to be overweight may affect your ability to get diabetes. Obesity in Louisiana is a problem. And this is from the 2009 Louisiana Health Report Card. Adult obesity in Louisiana rose from 16% in 1991 to 27% in 2008. These are people who are obese, that they are way overweight. During the period between 1991 and 2008, the percentage of overweight and or obese, the two combined, increased from 49% to 65%. Something's going on here. So when we talk about men's health and the leading causes of death, in males of all ages, the 2 leading causes of death, number 1 is heart disease, and I believe that's what Tony Clayton gave you that statistic, and cancer. The rest are important, but they are not nearly as high impact as heart disease and cancer. So both exercise and diet play a part. Now, if you eat more calories, you need to do more exercise. If you want to eat more calories, you have to burn them off some kind of way. This little cartoon is the doctor telling his patient, what fits your busy schedule better? Exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? So I don't like that second option. I'd like a few more years left. So the objectives of my presentation are really to look at what are challenges when you eat out. What substitutions can you make? Because sometimes what we eat, it doesn't look healthy on the plate. And then identifying your own eating habits. And I think your own eating habits are really sort of like a personal thing where you have to ask yourself, what am I eating and is it good for me? So there are a number of challenges to eating out in a restaurant, and I know that you will identify with these. A high fat content. Typically, you're not going to go to a restaurant for food that doesn't taste good. And your taste comes from two main items in that food in the restaurant. Fat is one, salt is the other, or sodium is the other. So that's the two main factors that really influence taste in food, any food, but in restaurant food in particular. And I don't know any chef who really measures out how much fat he's putting on that diet, and they just kind of have a laissez-faire attitude. They taste, and when it tastes good, and taste is all what it's about. So the high fat content is something that you need to be aware of. Large portions. How many of you have been to Europe, to France in particular, and other places where you sit down in a restaurant and you look at it and you think, that's all? Because oftentimes, that's really sort of characteristic of Europeans in a lot of ways, that they have a small, the plate is smaller, the portion is smaller, but actually we are on the extreme opposite end of that, where our portions are oftentimes too large, and we have a wonderful all-you-can-eat buffets that if you don't have enough on your plate, you can go for seconds or thirds or whatever. So that's not necessarily a good thing. Comfort foods. I talked about this in the last, session, where sometimes we want to go to a certain restaurant for certain things. I have a friend whose husband likes to go to Frank's restaurant. They go to Frank's right after church. So I don't know if they go often to Frank's or not too often to Frank's, because I don't know how regularly they go to church. But he has to have the corned beef hash, because he grew up in Pennsylvania, and I think corned beef hash is something typical in Pennsylvania. I wouldn't think to have corned beef hash, but maybe it's not. Anyway, so that is a comfort food for him. A comfort food for me, when I was a child, we went to church. We went to church every week. So my dad used to take us to the bakery across the street. So my comfort food is the donut. So I know that the donut is not good for me. But sometimes I hear that donut calling my name. And upon occasion, I sort of succumb to the donut. But it's not weekly. It's not even monthly. But I will have a donut. I might have one tomorrow. But I haven't had one in a while. The other thing that we have to remember about restaurants is oftentimes we go to restaurants to celebrate. And if you're celebrating, you're not thinking about, you're thinking about, I want the best thing I can have here because it's a celebration. So, things, and oftentimes you go out to eat for Thanksgiving or for Christmas. So there are often many occasions where we celebrate at the restaurant. I'm going to talk about different types of restaurants. Some of this kind of is a little bit repetitive with, strategies for eating out at different restaurants. And of course, the first one is the Cajun Restaurant. And the tips for a Cajun restaurant, and I will have to tell you that the handout that you have has a number of eating out tips that are pretty much standard among other restaurants, a lot of restaurants. And in particular, they don't follow this presentation, so if you're looking here, I might not mention some things, or I may mention some things that are on there. But at a Cajun restaurant, you want to choose dishes that include the words baked, broiled, roasted, grilled, poached, boiled, and steamed. Now we'll have to say that broiled could be with butter too. because I remember one time I went out to eat at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, and I ordered a steak, a small steak, and it had butter drizzled all over it. And I like, oh my God. So I sent it back. And I said, I don't want that butter on it. They looked at me like I was crazy. But you know, I'm paying. I want it the way I want it. So, you know, I don't think we need the extra butter on the steak. Anyway, blackened entrees too, you need to remember that, because, you know, we equate blackened with, oh, it's grilled and it has a little seasoning on it. But often it's dipped in butter and it's pan fried, and then they put the seasoning. So it's got a double whammy. It's got the butter, and it's got the salt, because usually it's a little too salty for me. And I will have to say that your taste for salt can be modified. If you go on a low sodium or a reduced sodium diet, it doesn't take long before you adapt to that diet. So, you know, the things that I'm trying to sort of encourage in this talk is the fact that small changes need to be adapted to, and that you will adapt to small changes, and you can make them a lifestyle for the future. Avoid fried seafood and hush puppies, and, you know, basically any fried foods. You know, I hate to say this, but, you know, another thing that I remember as a child that, you know, later on I don't eat as much is fried chicken. Like the skin, like all that stuff. But, you know, I know it's not good for me. So I haven't had fried chicken in a very long time. And, you know, I'm talking about all these things, and I hope I don't go overboard this weekend with the fried chicken and the donuts. But anyway, I'm going to go visit my brother, and he's not necessarily health conscious all the time, but he's doing better. He's doing better. I'm going to give him a talk. I'm going to give him this talk over the weekend. So the other thing you want to do is ask for all sauces and gravies on the side. Now, if you go to a lot of typical Cajun restaurants, Mike Anderson's, Parrain's, a bunch of those, you know, a lot of them come with sauces. And in my opinion, they come with too much sauce, because the entree in and of itself is good, but sometimes they just drench it with sauces. And that's where a lot of the calories are. So do yourself a favor and ask for the sauces on the side. Then you can pour out how much you want. Some may use all, some may use some. But, you know, taste the food and see how much of that sauce you really need. Another good tip is to choose broth-based soups instead of cream-based soups. Cream-based soups will have extra fat. Broth-based soups will have probably a lot of sodium. But, you know, it depends what you want to avoid the most. And, you know, in my opinion, the cream-based soups will have a very high saturated fat content. And saturated fat in our diet is the real problem. You get it from butter, from whole dairy products, whipping cream. Those are the real boogaboos as far as I'm concerned. And then also, I think I missed this one, order your salad also with light or fat-free dressing. And, you know, start thinking, I want it on the side. You know, you're still getting it, but you're in charge of how much you put. Salad dressing, gravies, any kind of sauces. So that's one thing that I think is an easy thing to do. You're not depriving yourself. You're just making the judgment of how much goes on there. Chinese restaurants are very popular, especially here in Baton Rouge. They tend to have the all-you-can-eat lunch special and sometimes dinner specials. So you kind of have to basically choose an entree that you think is the healthiest, and those will be those that have steamed vegetables and less meat in them. You know, and a lot of times they're worried about economy, so there might not be a lot of meat in them anyway, but, you know, the more the vegetables, the better. You have to worry about those sauces, because some of the sauces do have a lot of oil. It's a healthy oil, because usually the Asians use a very unsaturated oil, such as sesame seed oil or some other oils that are, you know, not high in saturated fat. But remember, oil is still oil. Choose steamed rice or browned rice. steamed as opposed to fried rice. I think that there's sort of this feeling at the Chinese restaurant that people always want fried rice. And they probably always do. But, you know, the better choice is either steamed white or ideally steamed brown rice. And I'm not seeing a lot of it at some of the Chinese restaurants, but it's coming. You do see a lot of little healthy stars on some of their menus, especially the one that I go to is a takeout restaurant, and they actually have a menu that identifies the healthy items, so you should look for that. It's actually the one, there's China Taste, I think. It's over at near George's on Highland. That one has, I know they have, their menu has some healthy items, but I think the one over by the Walmart, over Neighborhood Market on Highland also. I forget the name of it, but it's close to me, so I'm started going there. I think I like China Taste a little bit better, but anyway. Ask to have your dish prepared with no oil, little or no oil, no MSG, soy sauce or salt. I think that's sometimes a little bit hard to do, but I find that more, I see more of these Chinese restaurants with the little comment about no MSG, because that's, you know, traditionally been kind of a bad thing. Because some people are very sensitive to monosodium glutamate. Try fresh spring rolls instead of deep fried egg rolls. That's, you know, cutting down the fat. Skip crispy fried noodles, because those are really pretty much just fat. They're usually a coated onion. Well, they're not onions. Coated noodles, but they really pretty much are saturated with fat. Steamed rice, steamed noodles, and vegetarian dishes are good choices. Fast food restaurants, I know that we have a lot of fast food restaurants, and they actually have been sort of identified as one of the causes for the obesity epidemic. But, you know, I can't blame it on just the fast food restaurants in general, because, you know, this little comics, the guys at the register saying, okay, 1 low-cal mandarin, almond, and watercress salad. Would you like anything on it? And the guy says, yeah, Big Mac and some fries. You know, there's a lot of these fast food places that actually have healthy items. And I'm going to talk about those a little bit, about the healthy choices that you can make at a fast food restaurant. But, you know, what do you think about when you go to McDonald's or Burger King? Are you thinking, oh, this is the ideal place to get me a salad or get me a low-fat dish? I would say the majority of people are saying, I'll eat some burger and some fries. And one time at my son was at Baton Rouge High, and they had a little campaign, and every Whopper that they sold at Burger King, they would get a kickback to the school. I actually went there and saw a fella eat 9 Whoppers. That is a death sentence. But, you know, maybe an 18-year-old can do that, but I don't see how he had the room to eat that much money. And that's overdoing it for anybody. You know, if you can, at some of these fast food restaurants, order a salad instead of fries, a wrap with a low-fat salad dressing on the side. You know, as much as you can choose lean meats, grilled chicken sandwiches, and whole grain bread products. You know, we don't think that they always have whole grain buns. But, you know, until you ask, you don't know, because they're thinking that you're coming in there for the regular stuff when you want something maybe a little bit healthier. I know that there's a lot of grilled chicken sandwiches at some of these places, but they saturate the bun with ranch dressing or some sort of mayonnaise. So it takes something that would be healthy and makes it less healthy because it becomes higher in fat. I like mustard. I don't like mayonnaise. You know, I migrated away from mayonnaise a long time ago. That was a little lifestyle change that I made many years ago, and so now I don't like the taste of mayonnaise except in potato salad. There are a few exceptions, but, you know, as a whole, you can choose where you want to make the changes because you can have perhaps just as appetizing a sandwich without mayonnaise, using either fat-free mayonnaise or Dijon mustard or Zatarain's mustard or something to help it go down. Cheese and bacon are two of the top sources of saturated fat. So if you order a bacon cheeseburger, you know that you're getting a big whammy on the saturated fat. So you probably should hold the cheese, hold the bacon, and because of the number of calories in regular mayonnaise, you want to hold the mayonnaise. But, or do it occasionally. You know, my point here is not to tell you never to do it, but if you do it routinely, then you're worse off than if you have it just occasionally. Some of the, Wendys in particular, you can order a baked potato. I don't know how many other fast food restaurants. Some of them have baked potato options. They may have low-fat sour cream, but, you know, the point is don't just overdo the condiments on the baked potato. Order foods without sauces or cheese. Again, lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, and all that help to make it a little bit more healthful. Not pickles, but tomatoes and lettuce and tomato. Italian restaurants are pretty popular here. I know I worked with D'Angelo's for a while and sort of looking at his salad dressings, which really fit well in the Mediterranean diet because they're primarily olive oil. But you know, the reality is that oil is oil, and oils and fats contain the most calories. So, you know, if you're worried about just calories, and you know, I can't say enough, calories are more important than anything else, except for maybe saturated fat. But choose, you know, pasta dishes at an Italian restaurant that contain a lot of vegetables and tomato sauces, as opposed to cream or cheese sauces, because again, the cream sauces and the cheese sauces are loaded with saturated fat. Choose, if you're going to eat pizza, choose pizza that is loaded with vegetables, has a thin crust, and a lot of whole wheat crust are available as well. I know, and I'm not plugging D'Angelo's, but I know that, I just happen to know that they have that option of a whole wheat crust there. But many other establishments have a whole wheat crust. And my dietitian reminded, who was in one of my dietitians was in the previous talk, and she mentioned to me that, oh, don't forget to tell them that Syrops has whole wheat pita. So, you know, usually she forgets to ask, but I told her, you know, I went there yesterday for lunch, and they actually asked me, did I want white or whole wheat? So, you know, I think we're seeing a kind of a change where they're asking you what your preference is, and, you know, choose the healthy preference. You know, one thing that men don't like to do is share their food. I really don't think men go thinking they're going to eat half the portion. Women are, you know, it doesn't look as bad for a woman to say, oh, I'm going to take my doggy bag home. But most men, in my opinion, don't like to take a doggy bag. My other group laughed about that. They thought that was funny because, you know, they don't want to share their meal. But, you know, one of the strategies that we preach in our intervention classes here is if the portion is big, you don't have to eat it all. You can enjoy that wonderful meal twice. So that's a good strategy is, you know, get over taking I think you guys might take the doggy bag, perhaps. I think it's a good thing. And, you know, as I said, it's some of these Italian restaurants, a lot of restaurants that cook with healthy oils. You know, it's good, but just remember, the oil is where the fat is, and the fat is where the calories are. I dare say Mexican restaurants are a little bit more of a challenge because they have a lot of cheese on in their dishes, but, you know, the tip here is to choose lean cuts of meat and vegetarian dishes. Can't think of any offhand, actually, at too many Mexican restaurants. But, one thing that I think is characteristic of a Mexican restaurant is the minute you go there, they give you some tortillas and some salsa. And so sometimes you want more of that, because if it takes longer for your food to come, then you're like, okay, I need something else to keep me full here, not to mention maybe a margarita or something such as that. But, the thing is to not fill up on these things before your food comes, because I know that that's probably going to take half of that home with you, right? And if you order a taco salad, don't eat the fried shell. I asked this question to the last group. How many of you eat the fried shell? Oh, just a few. This is a healthier group, I think. I would say that the people here that say they eat the fried shell is probably 1/3 of the last group that I saw. I think these guys are healthier. The other thing too is to season your food with salsa or low-fat sour cream. Now, I've heard people say that oftentimes instead of regular salad dressing, some people will pour salsa on their salad. And actually, that's a good way not only to cut calories. I'm not going to go with the sodium here, but definitely to cut calories and to have more tomato products in your diet. And, how many of you are trying to focus on how much tomato products you're consuming in your diet as men? It's a health benefit where the prostate is concerned. So tomato products are good. I have a friend that was concerned about sodium, knew he should be drinking, or having tomato products. But when you look at a canned tomato product, it has a lot of sodium as well. So he used to get no salt added tomato sauce and drink a can of that stuff a day. He was getting the benefits of it actually has more lycopenes than a fresh tomato because it's concentrated, so that's a good health benefit. That's just a bonus from this. So, but the tomato sauce, the tomato gravies are better than the other. So anyway, and I mentioned about sharing a portion. This is one statistic that you need to be aware of, that the average restaurant meal contains more than 1,000 calories, not including your beverage, not including how many beers you're going to have or how many glasses of wine or whatever else goes with that. So you need to worry about making small changes, and just the salad dressing on the side will probably cut that a couple hundred calories. So remember that. So now we're going to talk a little bit about understanding what the optimal substitutions are. And really the first thing that I can tell you is that I don't see enough fruits and vegetables or even vegetables on people's plates, especially men. Women are pretty bad too, though. We really get the most impact health-wise from fruits and vegetables. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the MyPlate recommendations. If you haven't picked up this particular handout from the gals downstairs near the stairwell, they have a MyPlate booth, and can tell you, this gives you a little bit more detailed information about choosing the right sort of foods from the MyPlate recommendations. And then I think you have to be aware of high calorie, and I think I've already alluded to this, alcohol and soft drinks. Now, I like a glass of wine just as much as the next guy, but, I have to realize, and you have to realize, that that's where a big calorie contribution is evident. High salt and sodium in the diet has been linked to high blood pressure, and, and again, this other statistic is that people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. 80% of Louisianians in 2007 reported that they did not consume 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day, at least. We've done studies here at Pennington that show that in order to get the biggest health impact from fruits and vegetables, you need 9 to 12 servings per day. Now, and that helps reduce blood pressure, and obviously it will help decrease your or improve your cancer risk. So I think that, you know, I mean, think about this. And, you know, the last session someone asked me about fruit juice. Well, you know, fruit juice has sugar, fruit juice has calories. There's a concern about fruit juice, but I will still tell you there's more nutrition in a serving of fruit juice than in a Coke. And that's what I would choose. So a serving is usually about 6 ounces of fruit juice. And it's a small apple, so, you know, if you eat, and sometimes it's as little as a half of a large banana or a small banana. So, you know, that's why my suggestion is to get that handout to see what a serving is and then concentrate on how you can get more into your diet. And those fruits and vegetables are nutrient dense, means they have a lot of vitamins, they have a lot of minerals, but they don't have a lot of calories until we start pouring things on it, like salad dressing or put it into something else that has lots of calories, like desserts, for instance. So products that contain sugars, trans and saturated fats and alcohol are not nutrient-dense foods. Again, I wanted to, you know, encourage you to go to the MyPlate display and avoid eat food, but enjoy it, eat less of it, and avoid oversized portions. And so, and also too, with the MyPlate, here are some choices, some very simple things about choosing grains, and the main thing I want to talk here about is substituting brown and wild rice for white rice, or trying to incorporate more brown rice in your diet. That's another thing that I was going to mention as well. I also have order whole wheat pasta or use whole wheat pasta. You know, when I first started cooking brown rice and first started cooking whole wheat pasta, I thought that was the nasty stuff. It was, you know, it was like, it took, my brown rice didn't come out right. My pasta tasted funny. But, you know, I think that is your first impression when you make a change. Once you start doing it over and over again, it's kind of like the whole thing about skim milk. You know, years ago, people drank whole milk. I grew up on whole milk. That change from whole milk to low fat and then to skim has been one of the very positive things that I've seen in my years as a dietitian, or when I learned more and more about nutrition. So I think these things are changes that we can adapt to. It's just that you want to make sure it's a gradual change. So the whole grains are important. The vegetables, again, one thing that might be a good thing to do, maybe not every time, but upon occasion, is to have a side salad instead of the fries. And order the dressing on the side. Fresh fruit can be ordered as a side dish as well. And a lot of the fast food restaurants, I think, are offering a fruit cup as opposed to the French fries in addition to a side salad. So you have some variety, although that I will have to say that probably your initial reason for going to the fast food restaurant is not to get that side salad and that fruit cup. But if you order dessert, try something with fresh fruit. Make sure the fruit's there, so at least you're getting some more nutrition, very nutrient dense. Again, I mentioned the dairy. A lot of times, you know, lattes and cappuccinos are very popular, so we should encourage people to use a skim. And I know one guy who has terrible eating habits, but he made the change to a non-fat latte, which I thought was remarkable, and has adjusted to that. So he only has a non-fat latte. So make the change you think you can stick with, and stick with it for a lifetime. And then, of course, substituting a lower fat product for ice cream. I'm talking with, I have one person that I've been working with, and he has a problem with ice cream. He wants ice cream, a cup of ice cream, every single night before he goes to bed. So what's happening is it's the last thing before he goes to bed, and he's not exercising to work that ice cream off, although he is exercising. But, you know, we're trying to migrate towards something other than Bluebell homemade vanilla ice cream. So we're trying other options that may, you know, not really take away his ice cream, but maybe give him something slightly better than the calories from that particular choice. Again, beans are very good sources of protein, and they're also good sources of fiber. So choosing beans with little meat might be a good option. One fella in the previous session told me that he had gone to Popeyes and found out that their red beans and rice had 5 grams of saturated fat. I applaud him for looking at the label or the nutrition information. So that is actually a good thing to know, because it shouldn't have that much saturated fat unless they're adding some bacon, some sausage, and they're using the fat in cooking the food. So, you know, red beans and rice should not be that bad for you. And soups are bean soups are great side dishes, and I particularly like bean soups as well. Oils, the main thing about oils is trying to avoid saturated fat, and that saturated fat is in butter and lard and lots of other options that, well, we use butter. I don't think we use lard too much anymore, but it's not as fashionable as it was years ago. But always go easy on the oil because it has lots of calories. And the oil-based salad dressings are better than the cream-based salad dressings for the same reason, reducing your saturated fat. And light vinaigrettes and dressings are even better. And just if you don't like any of the choices at a restaurant, ask for vinegar and oil and pour your own, and, you know, be prudent. I think it's good for you to know that there's lots of calories in things other than food. A regular Coke at 12 ounces has about 150 calories, whereas a Diet Coke has 0. Regular beer has 148 calories, and light beer typically will have about 100 calories, but there are even some that are lower. Now they're starting to put the calories on the beer, on the light beer labels now, where that's something sort of recent in the past few years. Sweet tea will have about 72 calories per 12 ounces, and unsweetened tea, of course, doesn't have any. Portion size is critical. This little cartoon on the left has this fella telling his wife, giant silverware makes the portions look smaller, and you don't feel guilty about eating so much. You know, we always told people, don't get a big plate, because the big plate looks empty if you put the right size portion on it. But the smaller plate looks better because you can fill it up, and, you know, it's a sort of a mindful eating thing. The cartoon at the top says the doc's saying, I'm prescribing a diet pill, and the fellow says, can you supersize it? Supersizing has really been one of the things that has been the obesity epidemic has been attributed to supersizing. But, you know, I will have to say that you have a choice. You don't have to supersize. And in fact, I'm noticing that even the fast food establishments are not so hep on supersizing as much in their publicity as they used to be. And then, of course, the one at the bottom says, relax. This is low-fat ice cream. It's a huge cone with a bunch of ice cream. And, you know, the thing about it is, if you think about changing things, how many of you remember Snackwell's or know of Snackwell's cookies? They made the little coated devil's food cookie, and it was fat-free. But if you looked at the label, it had as many calories as the one that wasn't fat-free. So it might have been a healthier choice. But if you eat 10 cookies, you're going to be that many calories eating the fat-free and the healthier choice. So what I'm trying to say here is, healthy food can make you fat. So calories are always going to be important. So I think I want to try to give you a little bit of some meal comparisons and I think this will be kind of interesting for you. You want to get the most nutrition out of your calories, so you just need to look for better options. So I hate to key in on McDonald's, but McDonald's has a great website, and I'm going to show you it a little bit later. But look at this. A double quarter pounder with cheese, large French fries, and a 32-ounce triple chocolate cake has 2,400 calories in one meal. That is sometimes what most people need for the whole day. So it packs a lot of calories. I don't know, this TV thing. It packs a lot of calories, and get him to. It packs a lot of calories, and basically it may not be the well, actually maybe it is this one. Oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Dadgummit. Shoot. Okay, I hit the thing and it took my presentation away. Any questions while we're at this point here? Oh, yes. Yes. Actually, they all have the same amount. They're all healthy. Olive oil does have a little more saturated fat. I mean, in general, it's just a tiny bit of saturated fat, but in general, the light versus the extra virgin versus the other. Oh, there we go. But actually, there's not a lot. Usually, the differences in olive oil are really more due to what you use it for. Like some versions may be better for frying, some versions better for salads, but it's all the same essentially. The Big Mac, if you get rid of the shake and choose a Big Mac, large French fries, and a large Coke, you save about 1,000 calories, but it's still 1,350 calories. So, and 480 calories from fat. Maybe a couple of better choices. If you still have to have the fries, you can get a cheeseburger, a small French fries, and a medium Diet Coke, and actually cut those calories from the previous one in half at least. So it would be 530 calories. So substituting the cheeseburger for a hamburger, choosing a side salad with the low-fat balsamic dressing that is provided there, that they have available, and the medium Diet Coke then brings it down to 310 calories. You could probably have 2 of these meals if you maybe not 2 side salads, but definitely you could add a hamburger to that, and that would still be a better choice than the very first one I showed you. Go to McDonald's website is very user-friendly, and maybe there are. I don't want to key in on McDonald's. I'm not encouraging you to go to McDonald's, but you need to get educated about what is available, and basically they have a very good website that allows you to select certain things, and right here get the nutrition facts. If you don't want to, they all fast food, not all fast food, but a lot of fast food restaurants have their fact sheets. So you can get McDonald's, Burger King, Wendys. This is Jason's Deli. And these are just a few of the ones that I picked up. A lot of them are picked out, but there are a lot of them do have their nutrition information. A menu is helpful, and there are a lot of area restaurants. This is Sammy's Grill, and Jubin's, and they have their menus online. If you look at the tip sheets, you probably on your own could pick out the best options for you to order there at either one of these two places, and there's several others on that website. The thing is, you can Google a lot of this stuff. Now, there's something happening very soon that's going to impact your diet. It may be happening now. Can you guess what it is? It is time. It is football season, and I know that guys like to tailgate. Women like to tailgate too. But this is the big diet challenge, tailgating. And, you know, overdoing it when you're tailgating is going to really set you up for the holidays. Not in a good way. It won't be a pretty picture. So here's a couple of tailgating comparisons. And you know, the last group laughed at this. You mean one beer? Be real. So, but just to give you, putting everything in context, 2 cups of jambalaya, which is not a lot of jambalaya, and 1 beer has about 950 calories. Now, you know, we looked that information up in the database. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of variation in that jambalaya. The second meal is a foot-long hot dog with 1 light beer, and you save 400 calories. You know, there's a lot of differences in things in your tailgating challenges, but I just want you to know that this is one dangerous area. So here are some good tailgating tips, and one of them is, you know, using game meats, venison, duck. A lot of people throw that on the grill. You know, if you put the little bacon around the duck breast, you don't want to eat the bacon. But anyway, game meats are typically low in fat and quite delicious. Seafood in general is low in saturated fat. Shrimp does have cholesterol, but it doesn't have a lot of fat. So the saturated fat is worse than the cholesterol. And seafood also has omega-3 fatty acids, so you can feel good. I'm eating omega-3 fatty acids, especially choices such as salmon. Low-fat skinless chicken breasts are always good. You can use a little bit of a sauce on it, and there are like different types of sauces that are better, some better than others. Make kebabs with your favorite vegetables. A lot of these tips and more are on your sheet. Having fresh fruit and vegetables there. Baked chips and salsa, reduced fat crackers are good options. And also to remember, the alcohol is going to add a lot of calories. Plus the cops are looking for you after the game. But the thing is that we want to identify our own eating habits. We want to say to ourselves, how often do I eat out? Where do I eat out? What are my typical food choices? What does my plate look like? And do I always finish the meal? What other foods do I choose throughout the day and during the week? And all that impacts what you choose when you're going out to eat. So you should plan ahead. Look up the menu on the internet before you go, or be familiar with what they have there. Sometimes it only takes one time. Keep the foods off the table that you don't want to eat. If they're going to bring you bread and, you know, a whole bowl of butter, you don't necessarily want that. But if it's there, how many people, if it's there, I'll eat it? I may not have thought about it, but they bring it, and okay, I'm hungry, so I, you know, fill up on that. So that's not necessarily the best choice. Ask that your plate be taken away, but of course they have to know that you're finished with your plate, or, you know, signal them, whatever, or get that doggy bag. Look for healthy options listed on the menu, and lots of places do list healthier options on the menu. Always remember to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask about unfamiliar foods and ingredients. Like, for instance, if you had a dish like fish pontchartrain, and you don't know it, and without adequate explanation, ask about how that's prepared. The preparation methods are important. Again, I talked about these others. Just some to sum up. There's at sandwich shops, ask for leaner cuts of meat. I've seen some sandwiches that have meat in the interior that is this thick. So, you know, do we really need all that much meat? Always ask for extra veggies on it instead. Make it thick with veggies, and choose your breads by getting whole grain breads instead. Again, when it's Chinese night, ask for brown rice or steamed white rice as opposed to fried. Extra vegetables will give you more nutrition. And try fast food options such as the smaller burgers, the grilled chicken sandwiches with low-cal salads with low-cal dressings, you know, other healthy options. And make your pizza a veggie pizza occasionally, or less meat, thin crust, not a lot of cheese. Those are good strategies. But your next step at this point should be make at least one. I'm challenging you to make at least one healthful request the next time you eat out. What's yours going to be? Chicken sandwiches, okay. And do you ask if it has dressing on it, or mayonnaise, or? See, it's just thinking about, you know, what can I do routinely that will be healthier. You can also track your daily food intake and, you know, and your physical activity. Some strategies that really help people to watch what they eat is being aware of what they eat. Now, I know you're aware of what you eat, but you may not be able to think logically in terms of it until you write it down on a sheet of paper, tabulate the calories and the fat. And, you know, I will have to tell you that the one thing that helps people here that we teach them to do is to keep a food record. And it's the most hated thing that anybody wants to do, because you really, when you start tabulating it up, it's very impressive. And, you know, we also tell people to weigh regularly so that you can see what's happening with you. And right now there's lots of phone apps that you can use to track your food intake. And, you know, try a new dish. Try something vegetarian if you haven't. So any questions? I'll be happy to.